Hello and welcome back to the Practical LCA Training Lab brought to you by EarthShift. Before starting Module 2, Goal and Scope Definition, please complete Module 1, Sustainability Overview and Life Cycle Thinking. We will begin this module reviewing homework assigned in Module 1. What is involved from a life cycle perspective in making a cup of tea? I like to organize my thoughts by life cycle phase. The raw materials involved in making a cup of tea include growing the tea, which requires land use, water, energy, and fertilizer. Those tea leaves would then have to be harvested and dried, material processing. Then they will be packaged into individual tea bags, which will be placed into boxes, which will be placed in master cartons. Then the master cartons will be distributed. What mode? Trucks, rail, boat, air, how far? Eventually, the consumer will travel to purchase the tea. They will bring it home and heat up the water for their cup of tea. How are they heating that water? Electric or gas stove? After they enjoy their tea, they will dispose of the tea bag. Will they landfill it or compost it? Is the cup included in your study? If so, they will have to wash the cup. How many cups of tea can you have per cup? What else is involved in making this cup of tea? What about the sugar, or the lemon, or the milk? Here's the framework for an LCA as defined by the ISO standards. I will repeat this slide a number of times as we go through the whole LCA process. There are two ISO documents that if you get into LCAs, you'll want to read. The 2006 versions of ISO 14040, LCA Principles and Framework, and 14044, Requirements and Guidelines. The goal and scope definition is where you're defining what it is you're trying to learn and where your system boundaries are set. You will also define your functional unit and list your assumptions. You will then move to the process called inventory analysis, where you're going to be collecting all data and the resources and emissions data for the inflows and outflows of your system. Once you've collected all of this data, you're going to calculate what impact this inventory is having on the environment, and this is the impact assessment stage. Finally, you move into interpretation, where you will determine what your information means and what conclusions you can draw, as well as the limitations of your study. You will find that life cycle assessment is a very iterative process. You'll see the arrows go both directions. You'll start off with your goal and scope definition, but when you get to interpretation, you might find that you need to redefine your goal and scope definition based on what you're learning. So you will be going back and forth in between these steps as you're conducting your LCA. We will discuss each one of these steps starting with the goal and scope. During the goal definition phase, you will determine the reason for carrying out the study. That is, what question are you trying to answer? As well as the intended application. What are you going to use this data and results for? The intended audience, to whom the results of the study are going to be communicated with. And finally, whether your results are intended to be used in a comparative assertion, intended to be disclosed to the public. This requires specific ISO documentation and a critical review. We suggest that you do not have your goal be, we want an LCA on all of our products. Well, this is just entirely too big of a question. You will never finish your study. Instead, you need to turn this statement into something more specific. Ask yourself, what exactly are you trying to learn? For example, a goal might be, we want to see what improvements are possible for X product. Or we want to learn the environmental consequences of X material versus Y material. Your goal should not include your hypothesis. It should not be, our goal is to show that plastic bottles are better for the environment than aluminum bottles. Rather, our goal is to see which is environmentally preferable, plastic or aluminum bottles. When reading an LCA report, we recommend that you read the goal and scope before you read the conclusions. You need to know what the study entails, including the assumptions and limitations of the study. The scope definition includes a lot of things. It is where you will document your study. I like to think of the scope as a working document that I will add to as I complete the study. The scope includes the function of the product system, the functional unit, the system boundaries, that is what's in your study and what's out, allocation procedures, impact assessment methods and impact categories used, assumptions, limitations, and more. LCA is always anchored in a precise quantitative description of the function or functions provided by the analyzed system. The functional unit, as defined by ISO, identifies the primary function of a system based on which alternative systems are considered functionally equivalent. Consider the function defined as closely as possible to the end use. If we were comparing two types of water filters, what are the water filters doing? They're filtering water. So we can define our functional unit with that in mind. It may be 2,000 gallons of filtered water with particulate density X. We may need 2 filters to filter 2,000 gallons of water with one type and only 1 filter with another. When defining the functional unit, you should also consider performance quality. If we were studying lipstick, we may want to incorporate opacity and gloss into our functional unit, 2 qualities of lipstick. Also, performance duration. Exterior siding lasting 10 years in Florida, for example. If necessary, you can incorporate physical or spatial concerns, the square meters that wall paint covers, for instance. A fair and accurate functional unit is essential when you compare products. The process of defining the functional unit can drive innovation. Instead of just thinking about the product, think about the service that product is performing. An example is carpet manufacturing. What do carpet manufacturers provide? They provide a fashionable, good-looking floor covering. When Interface Carpet started looking at their functional unit, they came out with a totally new business model, carpet rental. They provide their carpet and tiles that they install and replace whenever they get worn out or out of fashion. They take the old tiles back and recycle them. The hotel or business rents the carpet on a yearly basis and doesn't have to worry about worn out spots or disposal. The result is a much more sustainable carpet. Zip cars are another example of a new business from a functional unit. Their functional unit was private transportation in cities. In cities, you don't need private transportation very often, only when you go into the country or maybe when you go grocery or furniture shopping. Zip cars provide shared car ownership and parking, which drastically reduces the cost and inconvenience of having a car in the city while minimizing the cradle-to-gate impacts of driving. By thinking about the service being performed rather than just the product, you may ask questions like, is it necessary? Or can we provide that service another way? And this can drive innovation. Let's go through a functional unit exercise together now. If our goal is to compare the environmental impacts cradle to grave of a ceramic versus paper hot drink cup, what should our functional unit be? Anytime you are trying to define the functional unit, you will brainstorm. It may be helpful to discuss with your advisor or EarthShift. Be prepared for an iterative process. You may not get it right the first time. Some questions to help get us started. What is the service performed of the ceramic and paper hot drink cup? Delivering, a set amount of a hot drink, delivering 8 ounces of a hot drink. How do the options differ in quality of service performed? Additionally, what do you have to add to each option to make them the same? The uses or number, washes, disposals, additions like paper sleeves so you don't burn your hand. It may be helpful to draft up a table like this. Our ceramic cup has 100 uses, while our paper cup only has 1. We need 100 paper cups for 100 uses. We wash our ceramic cup every time, so we have 99 washes. We never wash the paper cup. We have 1 disposal for the ceramic cup, while we have 100 disposals of our paper cup, and we have 100 paper sleeves. Through this process, you may decide that your functional unit is 100 8-ounce servings of a hot drink. From the functional unit, you can determine the reference flows, that is, the quantified amount of product necessary for a specific product system to deliver its function. Our functional unit is delivering 100 8-ounce servings of a hot drink. When we are going to compare the inputs and outputs for the ceramic and paper cup and what is required of each to deliver the function, data are usually in weight units in LCA modeling, so you'll see weight units used in these tables. Each paper cup is 10 grams, where the ceramic cup is 335 grams. For each paper cup, you need 5-gram paper sleeve. No sleeves for the ceramic cup. You never need to wash the paper cup. We are assuming you wash the ceramic cup each time using 0.25 gallons of hot water and 0.01 grams per gallon of detergent per wash. For the outputs, which can also be thought of as what you're disposing of, we have 100.10 grams of paper cups or 1,000 grams of paper cups versus 335 grams of our ceramic cup. We have 100 5-gram paper sleeves or 50 grams of paper sleeves. We have 0 wastewater for the paper cup scenario, where we have 0.25 gallons plus 0.01 grams per gallon of detergent for 99 washes. As you can see, the functional unit defines the reference flows. If our functional unit was 1,000 8-ounce servings of a hot drink, our reference flows would increase accordingly. For homework, please brainstorm what the functional unit should be if we were comparing cloth versus disposable diapers. And our goal is to see which option was the most environmentally friendly cradle to grave. Remember to consider the end use, quality, duration, and if necessary, physical or spatial concerns. This concludes Module 2, Goal and Scope Definition. The next session in the series is Module 3, Goal and Scope Continued, and Inventory Analysis.